Good morning, everyone. Good evening, good afternoon, wherever you are, and welcome to the weekly energy boost. My name is Elisheva, and I am here this lovely Labor Day morning with David.
Hello.
And we are here, as we are every week, to share with you the spiritual weather forecast for the coming 7 days. I was speaking with somebody who watches the show, and she said, it's really like a roadmap. Stop saying it's a weather forecast. It's really like a roadmap. It's the GPS for the week. And I said, I'm sorry, I'm not. I'm sticking with it. But it is a really good way to describe what we do here on the show. Every week, David and I prepare ourselves by going through the ancient texts like the Zohar, other Kabbalistic work. During the week, we are Kabbalah teachers at the Kabbalah Center. And
we do bring in wisdom from all walks of life.
Absolutely, absolutely.
As well, to kind of integrate it together. I think that's why people find it powerful for them.
Right. So that's our assignment every week, is to pull out the best, the most practical, the most relevant, the most useful, not only wisdom, but also actions, advice, prescriptions, so that you can take advantage of the unique opportunities in the coming week. Our show is on Facebook. We're live on Facebook right now. You can also find us on, what do they call it now? IGTV, Instagram.
Yeah, now we're on Instagram. Our Instagram got huge viewership.
Yeah, that's very exciting, and we love getting comments from you guys, whether it's on Instagram or Facebook. But our podcast is available on iTunes, Spotify, Google Play, iHeartRadio, Castbox, and Stitcher. You can also find previous shows on YouTube on the Kabbalah Center International page. We have our own channel, our own playlist there. This is actually, I am really excited about this month's shows because they're so focused and so precise. The month of Virgo, which just began on Sunday, is, according to the wisdom of Kabbalah, one of the most, I would say, the most powerful month for spiritual work.
That's right.
And we always, at the beginning of every month, we give insight into what to expect in general for the coming month. First of all, we want to hear from our Virgo friends out there. How many of our listeners are Virgos? Raise your hands right now. Being a Virgo, I personally, I guess I should speak for David as well. David and I are both Pisces, so we get along really well with Virgos. Virgos are our great teammates, I would say, because they're a lot of what we're not. And in a good way, in a very good way. They complete us. So Virgos, and the reason we share this, by the way, is not because we want to make Virgos feel good or bad or ugly. It's really because, according to Kabbalah, during the month, we're all going to be a little like that sign.
Yep. So
we're all going to be a little Virgo this month. What does that mean? Virgos are excellent at seeing detail, at being able to not only see the detail, but make use of the fine print, noticing when the picture is a little bit off center, being able to recognize when someone isn't in a good mood, right? They can scan the room and really have their finger on the pulse of what's going on with every individual. They might forget what the purpose of the meeting was, right? The big picture might elude them, but they are great at noticing the minutia. Now, being able to see those small details can also be their Achilles heel, because they can be focused on the small details and, again, forget the bigger picture. The other thing that Virgos tend to struggle with is criticism, self-criticism. They can be very hard on themselves to the point of misery and, sort of self-flagellation. They are also very critical of others. Depending on the person, they might be vocal about it or not be vocal about it. But that ability, that eye that they have, if they're not spiritual, can cause a lot of damage in their relationships and in their personal lives. So we want to be aware of not doing that, not criticizing ourselves and others, not judging others, not judging ourselves. But we also want to use that talent this month to help us grow spiritually.
Right, and the main topic of our show today is something that I don't know if we've spoken a lot about, but is incredibly valuable, is what is our relationship with ourselves? And what do we feel about ourselves? What do we think about ourselves? How do we treat ourselves? Are we beating ourselves up? Are we still holding ourselves? Are we still having shame for things that we've done? And what's really powerful about that is most people don't, when it comes to ourselves, we check out. We totally check out and we shove it somewhere. And I remember sitting at a seminar. It was a parenting seminar. It was so great. It was a great speaker. I forgot her name, but she was a great speaker. And what was funny was this couple in front of us, this married couple in front of us, every time she said something that like the husband needed to do better,
the wife elbowed the husband.
The wife looked at him and said, you see, something like that, right? And then when she said something that the wife needs to do, make sure she does, he turns to her and said, did you hear that? She's like, no, what happened? No, I just missed it. What did she say?
Was she a Virgo?
It was very powerful, because what happens is, whenever something is coming up about us, or an emotion about us, or something we need to change, or wisdom that could actually help us take responsibility, our internal opponent that we learn in Kabbalah, we all have this negative force that follows us around and helps us earn miracles, helps us earn our next level, helps us earn the light of the Creator. But the way it does that is by trying to block all forms of transformation. And whenever it comes to ourselves, we start to check out. When I often tell people, Julie needs to change X, Y, and Z. They go, yes, Julie, I could see that exactly. I know exactly what you're talking about. And then when I talk to them directly, I say, well, this is what you need to change. They go, I don't understand. What are you saying? So whenever it comes to our personal transformation, we check out, we block it, we shove it somewhere. Maybe we are very defensive and we say, no, we don't want to hear it. But what we do is, because we know the truth, we absorb that and we put it somewhere in our body. And what happens is it really blocks us. It blocks our ability to have wisdom, and it blocks our ability to have peace of mind. It blocks our ability to have healing, physical and spiritual healing. Sometimes we don't sleep well at night because we have this stuff shoved somewhere, and we're not in tune with what's going on inside of us, and we haven't healed it. We haven't forgiven ourselves for a lot of the stuff that we absorb. So what I want all of our audience to really think about right now is to really think about the magnitude of what we just said. That every time someone has criticized you, or you've maybe seen someone who's better than you, you subconsciously start to criticize yourself. Maybe you see someone who's having more children than you're having, or getting more successful than you're having, or getting married before you're getting married, or it's easy for them to be prosperous in a certain area, and for you it's such a struggle, and then you subconsciously beat yourself up and you shove it somewhere and you put it somewhere in the memory of your physical and spiritual selves.
According to what I've learned about the body, it registers in the nervous system, and that the cellular memory, it's almost like if a person is grows up in an abusive situation, they'll always flinch when they see somebody move suddenly. It's the same. We have the same reaction, even if it's on an unseen level. That anytime somebody gets close to touching that part of us that we're ashamed of, or that we feel less than, the body that releases that sort of depressive energy, and even the hormones in the body respond to that, and it brings our physical and our emotional and spiritual self energy down.
It's mind-blowing when you really think about how much of your cellular memory is holding on to negativity, shame, guilt, fear, stuff that we've never really dealt with. And that's why it's really good to, we'll give a meditation exercise of how to clear yourself of that. But something that I try to do daily is to check in with myself and say, okay, wait, where am I hating myself right now? Where am I not balanced in the way I view myself? Where am I beating myself up? Maybe I made a mistake yesterday, and even though the days moved on and I've moved on with work and life, I'm still holding on to something somewhere in my cellular memory. And if I don't clear that out now, I need to clear it out. If I don't clear that out, it becomes a cancer that eventually becomes even a physical cancer. So how many of us actually are self-auditing ourselves daily, or even every hour we should be, in clearing that out? The same way we take a shower maybe every 24 hours, I would imagine. We're kind of cleaning, right? We don't want
the grime to accumulate.
Yeah, right? We don't just put on deodorant over a non-showered body. That's what a lot of people imagine.
People love that metaphor last week.
Have you ever smelled someone who hasn't taken a shower but they just keep putting on more cologne? Right? It's kind of that cologne BO.
You've been outed, people. You can't do that anymore.
It's like the cologne has the taste in the back of your mouth of BO. So you smell the cologne, David, and then you get hit with the BO, and you're just telling that person, look, you can't do that. You can't just spray the cologne over the BO. You got to put on the
This
you
is
got
a
to shower,
spiritual metaphor. Of
shower,
course.
deodorant, then cologne.
Okay, so
don't skip that process. So that's what we do, though. That's what we do. Every day that goes by, we start to absorb negativity in our cellular memory, and we just spritz some cologne on it.
That's why it becomes so difficult when we are ready to address it.
Yeah.
It is so stuck.
Yeah.
It's in our clothes. It's in our hair.
Yeah,
it's on the pillow. You
Yeah.
can't, and I, of course, David is. We try to bring humor to the conversation because I think that also helps people remember and hold on to the wisdom.
They're going to remember that. Yeah.
David is usually the one that brings the business metaphors, but I'm going to bring a business metaphor here. If you have a company that you own, you work in it, and something is stuck there, right? The company, I would imagine, everybody on board is looking for, why are we stuck? What's the problem? Where is the blockage in our business that is preventing the flow of income and the growth? You hire a consultant, you bring the consultant in or whatever, you do an audit of the company, you find the blockage.
Yep.
Are you excited or are you upset?
You're excited.
You're excited, right? Now you know what you need to transform in order for the business to grow, for the income to flow, etc. Why can't we use that same excitement in our spiritual work?
And we are, because I think the big thing is we're just not aware, especially when it comes to ourselves and the cellular memory and the gunk that's stuck there. We're just not aware, because one of the best business practices I've learned from very, very, very successful people all across the board, they all say the same thing, is you hire quick, you fire quick, and you succeed quick and you fail quick. It's very important to fail very quickly, because if you drag on your failure and you're not in touch with it, it starts to create the cancer within the business. So what are we saying? We're saying, let's boil it down to the point, and then we're going to give solutions to help people heal. Bottom line is, whether we realize it or not, whether you're listening to this and you're thinking, no, that's not me, it is. It's all of us, okay? It's all of us, because every time we hear information, every time we hear evil speech, right? We talked about this, I think, on an evil speech show. Every time you hear evil speech, let's say someone says, Greg is really just bad. He's just a bad person. Greg's a bad person, and he's not good in relationships. And then you go, okay, yeah, whatever. And then you kind of like move on. You've actually absorbed that into your cells. And every time the word Greg comes up, every time you see Greg, that cellular memory is awakened because you absorb that poison inside of you. And, I think we need to have a whole nother show about how to manage that poison when it comes. But to first know that poison is there. Whether it's evil speech, whether it's from mistakes we've made, whether it's from traumatic situations we existed in.
But you're talking about, we may have heard when we were younger that we're not good enough, or we're,
in the womb. You could have heard it in the womb.
Right.
We know that that's accurate. Science tells us that the baby inside your womb is listening to what the parents are saying. And sometimes the parents say, this child is so difficult for me. I wish I didn't. I've heard this before. I wish I wasn't pregnant. Now the child hears that in the womb.
It's not even hearing, it's energy. The rejection, the feeling of disappointment, of failure, of overwhelm, it not only affects our cells, it affects the fetus. Right. It's a very sensitive thing. But I want to make sure that I think first and foremost, this work, the work of this month, what David's talking about right now, that rather than looking at it with dread and trepidation, we get excited. The same way you'd be excited if you found the blockage in your business that was going to allow the customers to overflow. We want to look for the blockages in ourselves. Yep. So that we can have that flow again of love, of confidence, of peace of mind, of health, of healing, all those things. That's our business. That's the irony, is that if you have a business, you're probably more focused on what's wrong in the business and how you can fix it than what can be transformed in you.
Right. So we're going to give tools of self-forgiveness and self-clearing. And the prize of being able to do that is physically, you're going to feel better. Physically, you're going to sleep better. Your digestion is going to work better. You're going to have the
flow in every sense of the word. Is what David is saying.
The energy will start to flow inside of you. Your skin will clear up. Sometimes people have skin issues. Your skin will clear up. Everything. Your digestion will become regular.
It sounds like an infomercial.
Sometimes people are backed up, physically backed up, and this also opens it up. Right? We know it's all connected.
And today's topic is forgiving oneself, not digestion. So.
Wait, hold on. I'm not done yet.
Okay.
So then spiritually, the benefit will be better ideas, The reason why we have a lot of negative thoughts and a lot of stressful and anxiety-ridden thoughts is because the cellular memory has accumulated garbage and it's attracting those thoughts. So happy thoughts can come, divine inspiration about the future, like you see a vision of the future, prophecy can come. We learned that a lot in Kabbalah. So a host of things. And most importantly, the words that we say to other people will be more powerful because the words are going to come from a healed place, right? Have you ever smelled someone's breath when they have what is it, halitosis? Is that what it's called? Halitosis?
David?
So I learned about this. It's amazing. Halitosis is actually something wrong with the digestion. It's not something in the mouth. It's something deep inside the digestion that is like an infection. And it's coming out in the breath that not even gum can cover it up. I say this so people can remember because we have a spiritual halitosis.
You have halitosis of the soul.
You have halitosis of the soul, and whatever's accumulating there, it comes out spiritually in the sound of your voice and many other things. Okay, let's go on to the tools of healing.
Okay.
And we've gathered this not just from Kabbalistic wisdom, but different thought leaders and psychiatrists and different wisdom and kind of put it together.
I want to talk to the people that are about to shut off the podcast or go to listening to another radio station. Society has conditioned us to conceal flaws, right? We have Photoshop for, videos and images. We have Spanx for real life. We have concealer. We have, credit cards conceal financial flaws. We have a lot that's built into our reality to pretend like everything is okay and nothing is wrong. I want to make sure that everybody understands, with all of David's bodily function references, finding what's wrong, right? We're not here to say that everything, you're perfect and you have nothing to do and just focus on how perfect you are. Kabbalah actually teaches that recognizing the things that aren't perfect and working through them is our divine purpose. That's how we reveal the light of our soul. So this is not just, you want to have a happier life, work on what you need to work on, forgive yourself, let it go. But when you work on it in a loving way, in a mindful way, in a way that honors your greatness, it's a beautiful process. That's really where the forgiveness comes. The problem is we think that if I identify, I'm lazy. And I need to hide my laziness. I need to look uber busy because I don't want anyone to know I'm lazy.
Right.
That's not what we're saying here. We're saying here, you're lazy. That's your superpower. You can learn how to use that gift for good. But you have to first forgive yourself for being lazy. You have to first see the perfection, the light, the goodness in that laziness. Okay. And so we're going to work through and understand, the stages to looking at your flaw, quote unquote, as a gift, as your friend, because that's what's going to lead you to your purpose.
All right, very good. So step one, and all limitations come from a limited belief system. So if I believe that feeling guilt and shame is what's helping me grow, like if I believe that that's a positive thing, so I'm going to hold on to guilt and shame. So step one is to remember that it's okay to feel guilty, right? So there's a difference between guilt and shame. We're talking about this in the car. This is from different thought leaders. There's a difference between guilt and shame. Guilt is my recognition that I've done something wrong.
That maybe I made a poor choice. Maybe I didn't have all the information at the moment and I operated from fear. That moment of feeling guilty is not the problem.
It's not the problem. And that's the first stage. What happens is every time we make a mistake, 95% of people who don't block it, because there's a whole realm of people who just block immediately any feeling of responsibility. But most of us, we feel a sense of responsibility and we feel guilt. Guilt really means that I have acknowledged that I've done something wrong, I've made a mistake, and I wish I didn't do that. So that's the first thing that comes up. When a person feels guilt, it's a very positive thing. It's not a bad thing because it means now you are conscious of the ability to transform. You are conscious of the ability to take a step forward. Because a lot of times people think, oh, I made a mistake, I've gone backwards. This is what everybody thinks. I made a mistake and I've gone backwards. And in Kabbalah, we learn it's quite the opposite. If you've done everything in your power to not make a mistake, and you make a mistake, It means that the Creator forced you to make a mistake. That's the first thing. That's already positive. But the second thing is, if you now learn from that mistake and transform yourself, you're actually on a higher level than the person who never made a mistake.
Right. That's what I meant a few minutes ago. I said that when you recognize those things, that's how you unleash the power of your soul. By being good, by behaving, that's not the road to success. It's about working through those parts of you that you're not super proud of. And that exploration process, right? That's really the key. Being able to look at what, I made a mistake. What I find among people that I work with one-on-one is, in Kabbalah and spirituality in general, there is an emphasis on accountability. Be the cause. Take responsibility for your actions, positive and negative. People think that by blaming themselves for their mistakes, that's taking responsibility.
Try to think about that for a moment. You making a mistake, which happens to all of us, is actually a step forward to your next level and not a step backwards.
Well, think about it. You make a mistake. How long does the mistake take you? 10 seconds.
Right.
By you rehashing it and replaying it in your mind and beating yourself up and shaming yourself for you did it again and all that stuff, you're now perpetuating the darkness for 2 days, 2 weeks, 2 months, your entire life. It only took 10 seconds to make the mistake.
In the deeper wisdom of Kabbalah, it's called noga. Noga means like something that has both potential for good and bad. It's half good, half bad. When I make a mistake, depending on, now I feel guilt, meaning I acknowledge I made a mistake. That's what guilt is. I now have the free will to make it good or bad. If I do good, means I learn and I change and I commit to being different. Now you've revealed more light than had you never made the mistake.
Right. King David said, I hold my mistakes in front of me always, not to beat myself up, but because I want to remember I can do better. These are the pathway for me, for my greatness, is to work on transforming the mistakes I made.
And he holds it in front of him because he's already made it into light. So it's something he wears proudly because it becomes a source of energy for him. Now, what's the other side of this noga, what could be the negative side of a mistake, is when it leads to shame. Shame is, I feel that I'm just overwhelmed with negativity. I have no chance. I have no hope. And
I'm not worth it.
I'm not worth it. I'm not worthy.
Why bother?
It's not possible. And so what happens is then I keep abusing myself. And that's what shame is. So every time we make a mistake, guilt is the first step we always feel. But guilt has two sides, positive and negative. I could either take the positive side of guilt or the negative side, which leads to shame. The positive side is, okay, I made a mistake. I'm going to take responsibility. I'm going to apologize. It's painful. My ego's hurt. No problem. Just keep moving forward. Learn the lesson and commit to being different. Do you know what kind of a level you reach if you do that? You're on a higher level than had you never made that mistake. And that's very exciting. Now, you can't do this. You can't make mistakes on purpose in order to do that.
Can I throw you a curveball?
Yeah.
I work with somebody one-on-one who is in geriatric care. Okay. So she very often is responsible for making decisions for the elderly who don't have families to make decisions for them. So that can be a bit of a head trip because she can make the right decision and look like she saved somebody's life. Mm-hmm. And she can make the wrong decision, quote unquote, and appear to be part of ending someone's life.
Okay.
How would it, let's say the latter happens. How could she bounce back from her guilt over that?
You're saying she feels guilt.
And again, I'm using that as an example. I can see from what everybody's sharing here, there are issues. People have issues, right? Like there are things that have happened in the people's pasts that it's really hard not to wallow in it for decades.
This is a little different than what we're talking about because we're assuming that she's making a mistake. She's not making a mistake.
That's what I wanted you to say.
Okay, all right.
Okay,
so we're talking about when you know you've made a mistake. So in this case, if she's in a unique position,
she appears to have made a mistake.
So this is a unique situation. Not many of us are in that position to make this kind of a decision.
You can look at, take this example. It could be, I said something and therefore someone's marriage ended. I did something and therefore someone was physically hurt. I know I have another student that is blaming herself because of something her ex-husband did 20 years ago.
Yeah, okay, that's different. That's a mistake. So I said something. I said evil speech. That evil speech caused separation in a marriage, or maybe I flirted with this guy or girl, and the husband and wife saw me flirting with their spouse, and then that caused a fight between them, and then somehow that spiraled and caused them to get a divorce. Can you imagine? So obviously that is something I would need to take responsibility for as a mistake. I would feel guilt. I would use that guilt to learn what the lesson is, maybe to even apologize if that's appropriate, and to commit to myself to being careful not to do that again. In this case of the person who has to make a decision, life and death, she's in a position where the Creator is asking her to make those decisions. Fine, it's very unique. It's not something that is general for all of us. And one thing I would tell this person is, just because you're ending a life, I don't see it as ending a life. A person's 95 years old and immobile, and the environment around this person says the
I don't
best
mean
thing
like
for
pull
her.
the plug. I mean,
Oh, you don't mean pull the
I don't
plug.
mean pull the plug. I
I
mean
thought
like
you meant
give
pull the
this
plug.
medicine and not that medicine, like almost in a doctor role.
Okay, I mean, this is complicated, but if a person needs to leave the world, they're leaving the world. It has nothing to do with you.
That's what I wanted you to say.
Whether you give this medicine, that medicine,
Right.
it doesn't really matter.
Okay, good. I just wanted. I think
Didn't really
it's important for people. I'm sure there are people who are beating themselves up over abortions, over things that do seem life or death. You need to know that in the matters of life and death, the soul of the individual is making those decisions.
And you brought this up because almost for sure there are people who are listening to this right now who have gone through that trauma of an abortion or a miscarriage. And from the women I talked to throughout the last couple decades around this issue, almost always it's affecting them, and it's in their cellular memory, and it's all tied into relationships and birth and sex and love and getting close and many different things there, and a healing must occur, and probably a professional needs to help with that. But this is the same thing. It's to realize that there needs to be a sense of forgiveness to unleash that feeling of shame.
The only way to recover from something like that is with forgiveness. You cannot hold a grudge against yourself and expect to move on.
And one of the ways that can help you do that, Kabbalah explains, is that if you chose to have an abortion, you did not choose that. The child had to leave. That soul had to, depending on exactly where it was in the cycle. Usually, if it's before 40 days, the soul hasn't come to the embryo yet. If it's between 40 and 90 days, that's another stage. 90 and on, it's another stage. But if that soul had come and you decided to have an abortion, you did not have that decision according to Kabbalah. That soul needed to move on to another reality. It probably only came to put you through a process. Right, so that soul came knowing that it would only stay for 3 months or 6 months, and knew that it would come and go to put you through a process for your spiritual growth. So the soul told you and made you have the abortion. Now, I know some people are getting really upset right now by what I'm saying.
No, but this goes back to something we say almost every week. The process is the purpose, not the goal, not the outcome, not the result. Right? That soul comes to you for a process, not because it needs to be in a body and live a life, and that was the end game.
All right, and before I just lose about 20% of my fan base, let me follow up with what I just said. I'm not saying that you don't have a choice when it comes to that abortion. What I'm saying is, if it has already happened to you after the fact, know that soul had to leave. So don't beat yourself up. That's the lesson I'm saying. If you are thinking about abortion, it's a different lesson. I'm not commenting on that right now, and I'm not even giving an opinion about what's right or wrong. Right? That's not our job to judge or to even Kabbalah doesn't have an opinion about it. So don't worry about that. I'm talking about if it has already happened. If someone told me it happened 10, 15 years ago, what do? My answer to them is you didn't have a choice in it. So, but that answer would be different for someone who hasn't done it yet. So I just want to make that clear, so that people don't think I'm stating an opinion or a spiritual opinion.
Okay.
Because I'm not.
So let's.
All right. So that's step one. Step one is guilt is okay. Don't make sure it doesn't go to shame. Once it goes to shame, that's it. It means you've already resigned yourself. You've already given up on the negativity. But if you learn the lesson and empower yourself to be different and move on, you've actually revealed light from it, and you've transformed all the darkness. That's step one.
Okay.
Step two, and it doesn't really have to be in this order, but it's a step. Admit what you did wrong and apologize. It can just
That's
be
not
that
always
simple.
possible, but where it's possible, it can be very cathartic. And it's another way that you show the universe you are taking responsibility. You are doing good by the mistake you once made.
90% of my one-on-one sessions, and I'm sure you can say the same thing, is giving a chance for people to share what they did wrong or what they're feeling already has released the negativity.
And we're not talking about forgiving others. We're talking about your path to forgiving yourself.
Yeah.
We're going to address forgiving others in another show entirely. This is your personal process of letting go of darkness from the past.
So when a person admits what they did wrong, whether it's to a third party or to a friend or even to the person that they wronged, they've already removed a large part of the negativity. What's left inside them is called the reshimo, like a how do you say it?
Imprint.
Like an imprint, and that imprint can only be removed once you change your behavior, right? So it's not enough to confess something. You also have to follow it up with passing that same test in the future. And that's when you fully corrected something and transformed it to light. But the first step of actually apologizing and confessing it, even if it's to yourself, say it to yourself. I did something wrong. I confess to this. Say it to yourself. I made a mistake. I hurt this person. And I want to be better. I want to learn from this. And I want to empower myself to not do this again in the future to anyone. This is already releasing the poison from you, and you're forgiving yourself.
I had a class earlier this week, and a student, one of the things we were talking about is that ego opponent element. And one of the students shared that she was focusing, she was doing her own work, during the week, and her husband pushed whatever button he pushed, and she got angry. And she said that because of the class and what we've been talking about in the previous lesson, she realized what she was doing, and before he could leave the room after getting yelled at, she grabbed him by the arm and she said, "I'm sorry. Even though I'm right," which I thought was a very funny way to position it. Even I'm not, facts are facts. This was a mistake, but I didn't have to react the way I did. And I'm taking responsibility for the fact that I didn't need to explode on you. And she shared it in front of the group, which was really powerful because this is not about becoming numb to reality. We're not talking about one day, if you follow what we're saying, one day you will do no harm, you will never get upset, you will never never make mistakes. The idea is to be better today than you were yesterday. So she wasn't able yet to prevent herself from the criticizing her husband for whatever he did. But she was able to recognize the darkness before the train left the station.
And experts in child psychology talk about parenting in the same way. They say when a parent makes a mistake, a parent gets reactive in front of the child, a parent says something that's a bad example for the child, the recommended thing is to actually tell the child accurately, I'm sorry.
I made a
mistake. I shouldn't have gotten angry. That's not the right thing to do. And to apologize to your 6-year-old child, right? And sometimes parents think, well, no, that's
showing weakness.
Now they're going to take advantage of me. And that's just not accurate. So child psychology has shown, these experts have shown that what the child is really getting is they're not only learning what's wrong, they're also learning what to do when you make a mistake. Because they're watching you take full responsibility.
And I have taken it a step further. One even more powerful thing that you can do with your children, assuming you're a spiritual person trying to lead a spiritual life. I wouldn't recommend this with a 2-year-old, but again, if you have, I would say, kids 6 and up, you can say to them, as an example, I'm aware that I get really impatient, or I'm aware mom is working on being more, not raising my voice as much. So if you ever see me going there, let me know. Call me on it. Help me be more aware of when I'm doing that, because I'm not always paying attention.
That's nice.
What that does, which is really powerful, is it teaches them to bring other people into their transformation process.
That's very nice.
When you recognize, and that's we call that in Kabbalah bringing it into the light. When you take something that's not perfect about you and you bring it into the light, you really shrink it. It really doesn't. It's really telling the universe, this is not going to own me anymore.
And I want to take this time to acknowledge our audience. And also, I think last week our show was the highest viewed show across all platforms. That's because our audience keeps letting their friends know about us and sharing our sessions and sharing our show. So every time you comment, every time you like, every time you share, our audience keeps growing. I think we grew by like 40% just last week alone. And we're helping people. We keep getting emails, and I mean, Elisheva literally gets stalked in the street by people saying, "Are you that woman?"
Yes.
And it's much broader than even our Kabbalah audience. So I think a good majority of our audience are not even students of the wisdom of Kabbalah. Obviously, if you learn Kabbalah, you're going to get even more from our sessions. But we want to thank you, and please write your comments and questions, because we are answering them live. As you're writing them, we are reading them, and we are answering them.
And
so
if you're not listening live, we go back periodically through the week, and we go back and we answer those questions.
Yeah, you can always ask questions throughout the week. Anytime you hear this, especially on Facebook, you can ask questions,
right,
and we will answer it. So thank you. All right. So that was step 2. Admit what you did wrong and apologize. How much more time do we have? 12 minutes. Wow. All right. Number 3, this was another technique given to us by thought leaders in this niche. Write yourself an apology letter. So this actually could work for people. I've seen this work, where you write to yourself that you forgive yourself.
And by the way, whenever we talk about writing, we're talking about writing with a pen and paper.
Correct.
There is something that happens to the brain when you write pen to paper, pencil to paper, that doesn't, and I am so impatient about handwriting, but it doesn't happen when you type. It's when you do the spiritual assignments, put the pen to the paper so that you can rewire your brain with your words.
I like that. So those were the 3 top things that I had when it came to forgiving yourself. And the last thing I'll say is realize how valuable it is and how powerful it is. And to even look at yourself, like look at your body. Do you love every part of you? I've noticed some people have shame about even parts of their own body, right? They like this part, they hate that part.
David's talking about this as though this is a phenomenon. This is not something rare. This is more typical than people loving themselves A to Z, my friend.
Right. And what happens is every time you judge a part of you, you don't like the way your legs look. You don't like the way your stomach looks. You don't like the way your nose looks. You don't like this. You don't like that. Doesn't mean you can't do something about it or change it or exercise or surgery if that's your thing. Doesn't mean you can't do that. But don't do it from a place of shaming yourself and hating yourself and wanting to be different, because it's not going to solve the problem. It's only going to, the cellular level of the problem will still exist. But say, you know what? I do love my legs, and it's time to invest energy in it. I do appreciate that this part of me, because sometimes people feel like their body's failing them. I hear this a lot. And they said, it's very hard for me
with
because
chronic
all of a sudden,
illness,
chronic illness. That's what they feel. Yeah, it's very powerful. I used to have chronic back pain for like 3 years, and I used to say to my back, like you're failing me.
Again?
Yeah, it's like you. I'm like trying to like function here. Mm-hmm. I'm trying to give back, and you just keep making it hard.
No pun intended. Give back.
Oh, there you go. I'm trying to give back, and the back isn't giving me. So, and it's funny because my back pain went away in one day when I took spiritual responsibility for it. I wasn't a victim about it, and I did some inner work. And it's amazing. As soon as I did that inner work, someone introduced me to a doctor, and that doctor said, "Oh, it's just this." I did that one thing, and it ended. And it's amazing because what even allowed me to find that doctor, it wasn't the doctor that healed. It's that I had already done the work I needed to do to unlock that energy, and then all that was left was someone just to say. I had earned him telling me something. But had I seen him before I did my work, it would not have solved the problem. Does that make sense? So all of us must also know that the people that the universe sends us to bring us healing, to bring us ideas,
or to bring us the epiphany. You may be listening to the show and being like, "Oh my God, I get it." You get it not because of something we said,
Exactly.
but because of something you went
did.
through.
Exactly. You did something this week that allowed you, when you heard the show, to have an epiphany, and someone else is hearing the show and they're not getting anything
So
out
I
of
want
it.
to talk to those people for a second.
So
okay?
the people who aren't getting anything?
Yes. If you're listening to what we're saying and not relating or thinking that's what you worked on 20 years ago and you're not in that space anymore.
Yeah, don't blame us.
That's not what I was going to say, but okay. We'll talk about that next week. No, I want to give, first of all, I want to give everyone this assignment, but especially for the people who are not resonating with what we're sharing this week. Mm-hmm. Call a friend. Somebody who you care about, who you trust, right? Don't call your great grandma who would love, if you told her you murdered someone, she'd be proud of you. Call somebody that you know is going to give you genuine and honest feedback. You can call multiple people if you're in the mood, but make sure that you're willing. There are at least people that you're willing to accept their feedback, and ask them this question. And I'm wording it specifically because if you change how you say it, you're going to get a very different answer. The question you're asking these friends is, what do I need to do to get out of my own way? Or is there anything you see about me that I could change that would make me happier, that would bring me more fulfillment? So you're not asking them, how can I be a better friend to you?
Right.
You're not asking them, how can I be a better employee to you? How can I be a better daughter to you? You're asking them to give their perspective on how you get in your own way. How are you self-sabotaging? How are you preventing yourself from being the best version of you? Their perspective. Why do I say it? Because every single one of us has blind spots, right? That's another function of the force of the opponent in the world, is to keep certain realities, certain aspects of our reality outside of our vision. That will continue to get in our own way, so to speak. Eventually, of course, you change your angle. What was it once in your blind spot enters your periphery and you can work on it. But we're asking now in the month of Virgo, where, by the way, your friends are also probably going to be more in tune with what's wrong with you, especially if they're not spiritual. Use that gift. Use the support from the universe that we have. I mean, I recommend you do it this week because we're going to give you a different assignment next week. Call it in. See if you can get feedback from the people around you, not how you're hurting them, but how you're hurting yourself.
I like that.
And I'd love to, if you're willing, I would love to hear the feedback. If anybody wants to share what nuggets, what gems they get from the people in their lives, that is really courageous and powerful work to do as we embrace the opportunity to. One of the other really cool things about the month of Virgo, and I think then we need to wrap it up, is that we have the ability. I guess maybe the what the Kabbalist teaches, that the more you find that you can work on, the easier it is. It's like a treasure hunt this month. So don't put this off. That's my message for you. This month has a unique ability to support us in our spiritual work. Don't waste your time. Look for nuggets, all the angles that you can find. There's a deadline, right? We only have another 28 days left. Do the work. It'll be worth it. It'll be rewarding. And because this is the theme of the month, it can be done in a loving and merciful way as well.
And what we know about the month of Virgo is whatever we have not fixed in the last 365 days comes back in this month in some iteration to give us the opportunity to fix it again.
Yeah, we'll talk more about that next week. I think that has a very powerful advantage when we're looking to repair or heal our relationships with others and our relationship with the light force.
Great. Let's wrap it up.
So we are here every Monday to share with you this wisdom. You can find us not only on Facebook, you can find us on Instagram, IGTV, you can find us on YouTube, as well as subscribe to our podcasts on iTunes, Spotify, CastBox, Stitcher, Google Play, and iHeartRadio. If you are listening on a podcast, please rate and review us so that we can reach even more people. David, any final words?
This is the biggest month for transformation. completely excited about self-cleansing, about just letting everything go.
Taking a spiritual shower this month.
Taking a spiritual shower. Do not spritz cologne on your BO.
Have a fabulous week, everybody. We'll see you next time.